My name is Frank Godinez, and today I'll be presenting on the Police Free Schools campaign in LA County as a part of the Abolition and Youth Organizing Research Lab, as well as a Bunch Research Fellow under the faculty mentorship of Dr. David C. Turner III. So starting off with an overview, I'll be going into an introduction, then grounding us in some literature, methods, followed by context setting, then findings, and then meaning making. First off, I want to give a huge shout out to everyone in the lab. Thank you all for your unwavering support and dedication, as well as for investing in me with so much love and care. For our research aims, we were interested in exploring underlying tensions and common interests on school policing policies and schools as a way to promote racial justice, as well as providing guidance for school systems who wish to shift away from punitive practices in schools broadly and police presence specifically, as well as elevating evidence-based practices and models for the state to help school systems shift from an over-reliance on law enforcement officers in school settings. Grounding us in some literature, we have one body that is Police Free Schools literature, most notably a report from the $1 Million Hoods Lab that found that despite Black students in LAUSD comprising only 8% of the population, they accounted for over 25% of encounters with law enforcement, which was in arrests, citations, and diversions. And we were concerned with the implications of that on Black student holistic well-being and academic performance, but also more generally, the effect of that punitive apparatus on Black and Brown students in LAUSD, as well as a body of literature on youth sociopolitical development, drawing from Roderick Watts et al.'s conception and theory of sociopolitical development, as well as some work from Daniel Solórzano, critical race theorist, who also looks at the liberatory potential of cultivating political identity in youth. Then we have methods which draw from 25 semi-structured interviews, using a deductive approach to analysis and thematic analysis, using Deduce software, which is a qualitative mixed methods research tool. Then going into the campaigns, we have the Cancel the Contract in Antelope Valley campaign, which is a coalition working to eliminate sheriff's contract with Antelope Valley Public Schools. And most recently, we're able to win control over dollars going to school climate rather than law enforcement. And then we have the Gente Organizada Police Free Schools campaign, which is another Pomona-based coalition, which most recently was able to end the police contract. But we see that the school district has begun to roll that win back. Next, we have the Police Free Schools LAUSD coalition, which most recently was able to defund the school police by 35% or 25 million, a growing number, and invest that money into a Black student achievement plan. Next, we have Safer LBUSD, which is a coalition to eliminate police presence in LBUSD, and which was catalyzed by the murder of Mona Rodriguez by a student resource officer in September of 2021. And so most recently, they were able to end that contract with LB Unified, and as well as get the SRO that killed Mona Rodriguez arrested. So going into study findings, we have our first theme, which is navigating daily carceral logics and how youth had a carceral conception of their school as well as the surrounding neighborhood. And so I'll go ahead and read some of this excerpt, which is the fact that they had SROs on campus was enough to feel like you were constantly surveilled. Then being targeted as a Black or brown person, white kids being favorited and well known, and being protected in that way. Yeah, the limited freedom of having to raise your hand, like to go to the restroom. I know rules serve a purpose, but I feel like to a certain extent, there was a lot of people who were abusing their power, which really speaks to a counterproductiveness of the measures in place that are supposed to make students feel safe, but actually end up criminalizing them and making them feel dehumanized by having to use the restroom or being constantly subject to surveillance via metal detectors and police presence on campus. And then also within this theme is, I'll go ahead and read They had people outside the door who would check backpacks. That was, their protective mechanism for preventing school shootings. But I felt like they'd target Black and brown students and do searches on them. So with all this, I felt like I'm coming to school for 7 hours a day and I don't even feel like safe, even with all the protective mechanisms they have in place. Just reiterating that maybe whether intentional or not, negative consequence of these school surveillance policies, which make students feel dehumanized and or criminalized. Then moving on to the theme of school connectedness or lack thereof, I'll go ahead and read this quote, which is that, so besides organizing, there was nothing really like actively happening at school that I felt like was defining of my school experience besides organizing. Speaking to like the pedagogical function of the political programming and other mobilization efforts that students are engaged with outside of school, and really the inadequacy of the curriculum of public education that makes students not feel engaged or feel disconnected with. And so last, we have another finding that was that youth are likely to form relationships in response to carcerality. These four relationships being relationship to self, to community, to movement, and to future. And to best illustrate these relationships, I went ahead and included some excerpts, which the first being, because you can teach them, you can show them how to map and graph and research, but if they're not wanting to do it or just don't see a deeper purpose, it's just like work for them. For the sake of just having a why to the work that they are doing and being able to see and feel that the work they're doing is relevant to their experience and development, and how that's a crucial aspect. And then we have relationship to self, which is take care of you first, because you don't do that, you definitely can't take care of anybody else, or let alone lead a movement. And so the resistance aspect of self-preservation and self-care as an act of resistance, and how it's equally important to engage with the work as it is to engage with keeping yourself and sustaining yourself. Then we have relationship to community, trying not to lose hope, because fighting for change that's very stuck down. Try not to feel hopeless and surround yourself with community. Community is like the most important part of it. The basis, because if you don't have no community, there's no movement. Without community, there's no hope. So community being like the backbone and re-energizing effort in these movements to go against the grain of institutions, or to push back on measures that are just inherently conservative and will resist change, and how leaning on community is a very important part of organizing. So, and then we have the relationship to future. So where students are laying out that they envision a school environment where students are treated equally, their input is just as valid as the people who are older than them, and giving students independence and guidance to be prepared for the real world and to make decisions on their own. And also emotional regulation skills, mental health care, self-love, and even self-love workshops. I feel like things that will make a better school environment. And of course, teachers who actually genuinely care. Speaking to just that demand for systems that support the holistic well-being of students, and not just metrics or test scores or very standardized measures of student intelligence. And then last, we have meaning making, which is ultimately youth don't want police on campus at all. And this police-free schools movement connects to broader defund police movements and the Black Lives Matter movement. And also that youth are organizing with the goal of diverting money into the resources and opportunities that will foster supportive relationships on campus, like wellness centers and mental health advocates. And then abolition, not simply meaning getting rid of the prisons, police, or systems of surveillance and punishment, but also what is built in their place. And how youth are imagining both and have the capability to tell us exactly what a safer campus without school police looks and feels like. Then we have a People's 5-point plan, which is a community constructed, tangible list of demands that the students, stakeholders, and organizers would like to see implemented for a more holistic school district. So last, I'll leave you with this quote. And thank